Okay, so we are recording, so yes, you say the statement.
The committee chair determines that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the statewide COVID-19 disaster. This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you.
I call the meeting to order. It is 11:08.
Okay, and we have Susan Toulis, Barbara Living, Diana Brawley-Sussman, Jennifer Robertson, and Lynette Miller.
Okay.
And
Do we have any visitors?
we do not have any visitors.
Good.
Yeah, that makes it easy, I guess. Okay, so when we decided to have that we needed this meeting because when we met last time in August, there were different parameters that the state would follow. They would go through phases. Phase 1 being the complete lockdown, and so on and so forth. So phase 2 is a pretty severe lockdown. That would be retail can only do curbside by law. And then phase 3 is a step up from that. We're still in phase 3, but then they ended up adding in these tiers, and the tiers get more restrictive as you go up in number. So they do the opposite of the phases. So they moved us to from tier 1 to tier 2. They've not moved us to tier 3. So when I reached out, we went ahead and decided to go to curbside and then meet about it and decide whether we wanted to continue with that. At first, I felt some hesitancy, but since then, there have been so many daily announcements from the governor basically pleading with people to stay home and to only do the minimum and to not have gatherings and so on and so forth, even though the restrictions that they've put in place are not as restrictive as that. At first, a lot of libraries said that they were not planning to lock down unless we went to stage or tier 3, which would be one level deeper in terms of restrictions. It's hard to know what to do at this point. I think it should be noted that the risk right now is higher than it has ever been, even though the restrictions are not as restrictive as they were in the beginning. But there are more cases right now. There's a higher percentage of people who are tested who are positive, and there are more hospital beds and ICU beds occupied now than there ever have been so far in this crisis. So so our first question is, what do we want to do currently? Do we want to stay with curbside, or do we want to open back up, or do we want to go to an appointment only model, which I would just have to figure out kind of the logistics of how that's done. Some libraries do have an appointment only model, and I think some have been doing that all along, and rather than opening their buildings, it would be a pretty restrictive number, and I would have to figure out kind of how it's done. But that also might be something to do like at a future stage. I think it would be for using a computer for something other than socialization or gaming. And then maybe for social work as well. Social workers have been meeting people outside. And it would be a small restrictive number of total people. that again, like still expands our exposure a little bit from what it is when we're just curbside. So that's our first question on the table, is kind of what to do currently if we want to just continue with curbside, if you want to add appointment, or which I think is probably, it's up to you, particularly Susan and Barbara, but we could open the doors. I feel pretty uncomfortable with that option. And then the next is like kind of how to proceed in the future, so that we can take some of the guesswork out of it. But as I said, the stages, what the governor is saying would be something far more like stage 3, but that's not what the he's not put us in stage 3. So it gets a little bit confusing between what they're begging us to do and what they're telling us we have to do. And different libraries are responding to that in different ways.
And can I just ask a question, Diana? The libraries you spoke with, are they all like in our area? Because I know we've had more cases than some of the other areas.
That was IHLS libraries only, and it was just an email to directors. So they're kind of all over the place. Okay. And some of them, like one was from the Metro East area, and they have some really high numbers. And she said she went to curbside October 31st and has no regrets about it. She just was watching the numbers herself, and before any orders came through, she was like, this is ridiculous. So went to curbside. Some libraries are saying that they wouldn't do it until they reach stage 3, but just kind of looking at like the director's listserv this morning, it seems like maybe a couple more are planning to go to curbside now that they have, heard the reprimands from the governor statewide, and I've seen some other, like a library up north in the Chicago area that I'm just friends with, that they had gone to curbside at the advice of they said of the Illinois, whoever's in Illinois Department of Public Health. So I'm not sure if they had directly called the Illinois Department of Public Health and asked, but the guidance they were giving was that they should go to curbside. So, so please, you guys, give me some weigh in and questions and thoughts on first what we should be doing at the moment, and then we can move on to the question of what to do in the future to take the guesswork out of it. What are your thoughts?
Comfortable are you with what you are doing at the present?
I'm comfortable with it. I think that at some point it might be difficult for the social workers to meet people outside when it gets colder. And I know that there might be some people who, I know like somebody called in, needed to do a proctored exam, and was like, how am I supposed to do this? And things like that. So there are some instances where I think it might be helpful to let patrons in, but my fear with letting patrons in is that, like, if we put a note on the door that explains about, making an appointment, and then somebody just walks in or, walks up and bangs on the door and is like, well, why can't I make my appointment for right now? And it just puts us in a position of potentially having to have some heated conversations with people. Not as much as opening the doors wide though, because when we just let people in, then we have heated conversations about, pulling your mask up over your nose. And when you have a heated conversation with someone, of course, they're yelling at you with no mask on, and so they're spewing their, potential virus on you. So,
so I have a couple questions. So up to this point, you were limiting the number of people in the building to 20. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you ever max out?
No, we didn't.
What was the number on average that you had in there? Do you know?
I'd say at times there's only 2 or 3 customers in here, but at times there's probably about a dozen. What do you think, Lynette? You're in here and up at the desk the most.
Basically it depends on the day. If the social workers are in, then somebody who actually has the appointment is going to bring a tribe with them. And there are people that are beneath their kids. So before the school went back, it was one of those alternate remote days. Some of the kids would be in and they would stay past their 2 hours, but for the most they were good. But then, they're in and out. And then we got a couple of people that you tell them about the 2 hour limit. They do their 2 hour, they hang around outside, then they come back in, then they're in and out.
Yeah.
But never have all the computers full at the same time. I would say there are a max of 30 people in at the same time. That's including us.
Right.
So again, it just kind of depends on the day.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that we do need almost more staff when the doors are open. So there are more of us plus more. When we're doing curbside, there's, it just like there's fewer people here today, I'm noticing. So I think more people are working from home or.
Yeah, we have a curbside schedule that keeps it at no more than 10 staff in the building at a time. And that schedule can't be done when we're open. Because we need people at the desk and stuff. So we have a gap in the afternoon where those who are just strictly working the day leave, and then the part-timers who are working the night come in. And if we didn't have that, then there would be at times like 16 of us in the building at once. So if we did appointment only, we could still do this curbside schedule with appointment only, but it would just be a minimum number of people that we would let in.
What is the seating capacity in the library?
Like chairs?
Yeah.
There are like 12 computers, and there are probably like maybe 8 to 10 chairs.
8 tables with maybe a chair or two at each.
At each table.
I mean, because if what they're saying is 25% of your capacity, I was trying to figure out what that number would be.
That would, I think, be 10 patrons, because when we, when I figured out our capacity initially, and we went to half of our capacity, I think quarter capacity is probably 15 patrons plus us.
Right.
And that's being pretty
generous.
Generous. That's thinking of us as like all one room essentially.
Right.
Some people would do it differently and say like really the capacity in the meeting room alone is like 44 people. But that's jam packed. So even at quarter capacity, there's no way to social distance in the meeting room. So, and we don't have people in there, but as an example, our fire code capacity is probably higher than that. But,
right. So when you were doing just curbside before, did you have any issues with staff getting sick?
No, we had, I mean, even now in terms of, when Gwen got it, we didn't, none of the rest of us got it. So, so we haven't had that trouble. We have, when people are in here, we do have many constant conversations with people about pulling that mask up over their nose. And some of those conversations get heated. We've had to ban, I think, 11 people over it. And we do have trouble getting people to stick to that 2-hour limit as well. Like if mom drops off her 2 kids, you know, and a lot of times we don't even see mom to say, hey, don't do it. You know, we can't really get them out of here if mom just went to work or something, you know? So yeah, we do have a little bit of trouble with getting people to stick to that 2-hour limit. And if there's just, you know, 5 people sitting around in here, we don't really care that much, but I don't know.
Well, personally, and I can then also tell you what we're doing here at the university, which will be different than what you're doing. I think going to curbside and allowing appointment only. I mean, we do have appointments, but we do say you have to give us 24-hour notice. You know, and if you don't, you can't come in. I mean, I know it's hard when you've got someone standing there. It's like we've been checking out laptops and they're supposed to make an appointment and inevitably they show up and they've not called, and it's like, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
We go get the laptop and check it out to them.
Yeah.
I think appointment only would allow us to like just clean things better, because with this high of numbers, I worry about just like germs on surfaces, and when people are walking around, it's hard to know, like there's so many surfaces here, it's hard to make sure everything's clean. But if somebody's at a computer for, you know, however long, we then know to directly go there and clean it afterwards, or like the social worker's station.
Right.
So that would personally, as an employee, make me feel more safe to not just think like, oh God, everything's contaminated. I don't know.
Right.
It's scary to think of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. When we're just open, it's really hard to know which computers have been sat at, which desks have been sat at.
Yeah, and just people browsing with the books and other materials, you know, there's just so many things to touch.
Right.
With appointments, when we open back up the curbside again, usually we have told people constantly, you know, when they do the curbside form online, give us a call when you come in, or pull up, blah, 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 let us know that you're out there, etc. Some people are just showing up. Put it out, and, you know, it's kind of between trying to bag up stuff, have a curbside order, get other stuff checked in, deal with the phones. Then you got to stop what you're doing, because that person who didn't call is out there waiting for their stuff.
Right.
So that's, you know, that's kind of, maybe that's why you need the extra people at the desk for the time being. But, you know, if everybody would just do what we ask them, and we know that's going to happen, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I do feel bad not allowing people to come in for an appointment to use the computers or something, because I know that's a lot of just our services that we offer that is helpful to people in the community. So, like, how can we find a balance? It seems like that might still offer people the services without, you know, putting us in extra danger, since it just seems like everyone's not doing what they should be doing. So that's in this mess, you know, like some of the businesses that are allowing that many people to be in them, like they're obviously causing problems. So
yeah,
can follow their example exactly, because I just don't think they're doing a good job.
Well, if we were to do appointments, one nice thing about that is that, you know, we can stop that person right at the door and say to them directly, you know, we can even do a wellness check on them, really. But that mask has to stay up over your nose. And if we have to remind you about that, then you're not going to get any more appointments, and you're going to have to leave immediately. Rather than just as people walking in, you know, and if they have an appointment, they might have more of an awareness of our eyes on them. Like, you know, I think that people come in and they're like, yeah. And they're like, the staff's not looking at me right now. And so you walk by them and 10 minutes ago, you told them to put that mask up over their nose, but they saw where you're headed and they know you can't see them from down here. So mask comes back down. Whereas if they're there for an appointment, there might be a little bit more of an awareness of like the seriousness of that. And we can tell them right at the door, that's the issue, you know, so. That
Yeah,
might
like
help.
checking in, like when we first opened, after being at Curbside, and we had somebody sitting at the door for that 2 weeks, and they had to write down their information. Like people took
Right.
it seriously, you know, it was really
Mhm.
maintain that, but they took it more seriously. So I think having to have someone sign in and like sign out, and you know, I
Well,
just think,
would you limit what people could come in for by appointment only to meeting with the social worker,
Mhm.
using a computer? I mean, you could say no to that.
I think the only two reasons I can think of to ever let them in the door where they really have to come in the door is just to use the computer and just to meet with the social worker. Because they don't need to come in here and browse for
Right.
books.
Right.
And they don't really need to come in here to like fax stuff. We're doing all that stuff curbside.
Meet
So
with a reference librarian.
they can do that on the phone.
Right.
Right. All of that stuff can kind of be done on the phone. The only thing that we're really have not been able to offer would be computer use, proctored exam, and social work. So those would be the only things I would think. And even with computer use, I think that we would specify somehow computer use for non-entertainment purposes.
I'm thinking of some of our regulars that come in every day for the computer, like we want them to make an appointment every single day just to sit here. Yeah, exactly. Especially because those are some of the people that haven't been following our hourly limit to begin with, you know,
Right.
try to get around it. It just gets really old having to babysit.
Grown-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it puts you in danger every time you have to go babysit because you have to walk up to a person who's not wearing a mask, you know? So yeah, I think computer use for non-entertainment purposes, but what do we do about, you know, does somebody want to come in every single day? I mean, it seems like it might be hard to keep track if you were to say you can only make like one appointment per week or something like that. But yeah, some of them are going to want an appointment every day.
You know, a lot of people are just coming in to use the Wi-Fi. So is the Wi-Fi signal broader and wider than it was before? Or
Yeah. Yeah, you can use the Wi-Fi in the parking lot and out in the garden, and we increased it already, so they can use it outside or in their car.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I don't know if it'd be possible, but maybe to limit it to a certain number of appointments per week. And just, I mean, if we had a sign-in sheet, we could look through.
That's true.
So
Mm-hmm.
we could have like, you know, times like
Right.
on there and only have so many appointments at any
Right.
given time. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you would want to open it up that you would have appointments all the hours that the building is open. I think
Right.
you start off with a limited number and see where it goes.
right.
I mean, if they're in there using the computer to play computer games, no.
Right. Exactly.
Somebody needed a job application, they could come in and do
Right.
that
Mhm.
or something.
Yeah. So like what would be reasonable? So computer use for non-entertainment purposes, proctored exam, That's not that common, but, or social work. And then limit the number of hours when those appointments are available, like to when we have enough staff in the building and that kind of stuff. And so that it's not just perpetual. What would we say? I mean, okay, so put yourself in the shoes of a person who's maybe like applying for jobs or applying for, emergency assistance or something, like needs to come in and use the computer. Do we want to say, any individual person can only have no more than like 3 appointments per week? Would that help to kind of, keep that down? I mean, we could sort of be flexible, like internally without, like in particular situations where somebody's like trying to resolve some sort of issue or something that's immediate, doesn't have internet access and they're waiting to hear back on a, job interview or something like that. But for the most part, does no more than 3 days per week per person sound like a reasonable limit?
I think so. I feel like even if you were needing to communicate with people and that was your main method of communicating, that's every few days you could check in, your social media or whatever, because that is the way some people communicate with family and stuff. So that's not necessarily just entertainment, email and stuff. But I mean, that would still give you and like you said, we could be flexible if somebody is like applying for a job and needs to check their email to see if they, got an interview or something. I'm sure we could maybe do an extra day or let them do them like 3 days in a row or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, if they choose to do 3 days in a row, then those are their days. Like, but okay. Because I mean, I don't want to be draconian, but I also, of course, don't want to let it get really lax and open us up to, just behaving as though we're not in a, state of emergency, essentially.
Right. And that there's a limited amount of people who can be in here. So it's not fair for people to take up all the appointments because other people need them. So.
Right. So if we have appointments, so the social workers, they make their own appointments, and I would hesitate to have the staff get involved in that because, they're students and they need some flexibility in their schedules and stuff. And if we left their appointments to them, I mean, essentially they have, we'll have to talk to them about telling people like, don't bring everybody with you. I mean, sometimes I can understand it. Like if it's a single mom, she's got her 3 kids with her or whatever, and where are they going to go? I understand you need to bring your kids in, but sometimes people are bringing in like, whole, like 7 or 8 people with them, and they don't all need to be in the library for your appointment. So some of them are capable of watching your kids at home right now. Some of them are your age. So if we talk to the social workers about, making their appointments with people and limiting the number of people who will come in with that person, then how many people would we want to allow in to use a computer in the library at any given time, so that it's, still helping to provide us with some extra safety, but also not being overly restrictive. What are your thoughts?
I think you should just determine on your own something like that, how many computers could be in use at times. But people certainly, if they don't understand, it's just too bad, because you just have to follow whatever you and the staff feels comfortable with. Mm-hmm. Certainly curbside and whatever restrictions might help the safety of all. That's the patrons as well as the staff. And as far as exactly how many, But I think the idea, Jennifer, of having the sign in for appointments, and you can check and see and be sure how many times people have come in, and even have them sign number of people or who's coming with them, so that you're able to show them, look, you've been coming in the library and you're using space that could be used by somebody else who needs to come in. So you have, the staff has, I'm so impressed with all of you as to making the right decisions, and it's difficult for me. Susan may be better because she's dealing with another library situation, but I know the other day when I came in, I think maybe there might have been one or two other patrons in, and I was just, you know, renewing my library card. So, but I think you're capable of deciding those specifics.
Okay.
So my question was, how many computers do you have, computer workstations are in the library?
I think there are about 11 that are, or 12 that are functional right now. They are each 6 feet apart. I would hesitate to let 12 people in at once.
No, I was going to say, I would probably not do more than 3 at a time.
I agree.
5, but yeah, maybe 4, 3. Like that way we could, if there's a little bit less staff, we could still keep an eye on everybody.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Those tools and all, maybe like the ones.
Do you have cleaning supplies out for patrons to use to clean?
Huh. I haven't really done that.
Sanitizer for them mostly.
What'd you say?
You know, hand sanitizer for the patrons. Well,
Right.
come behind with antiviral stuff.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying you should do that, because I've watched how we have supplies out there, and you'll get, you know, 2 out of 10 students who will wipe down the table. We also have cleaning supplies that are specific for the laptops or for computers and the keyboards.
Yeah.
And again, it's a handful who will use them.
Mhm. What do you have, Susan, that's specific to your computers? What are you using?
I don't know, I'll take a picture of the container and send it to you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like, you know, like we aren't wiping monitors with this stuff because I think it would erode the monitor pretty quickly, but we are wiping the keyboards.
The keyboards, yeah.
Yeah, I think if we put it out, we might have people like spraying down monitors and stuff like that too. So that could get kind of damaging. But okay, yeah, we can make a schedule for like 3 to 4 people at a time. We can work on that in order to start doing appointment only.
I mean, I think if you know, wherever you post the information about this, you know, you just need to remind people that, you know, you have to wear a mask, you have to wear it appropriately. You know, if they don't, it's gonna, you know, you may have to shut that service down. You know, we're trying to be accommodating during these horrible times, but you also got to meet us halfway. Obviously, you can't put all that in your.
I know.
You may want to.
Make them watch a training video before they come in.
Yes.
Read the contract and then sign it.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll be good to try it though, because yeah, like you said, we haven't tried it before, so I think you can see how it goes, and it would offer more than just curbside, but people get their off and we're having to get in fights with them, then maybe we'll have to revisit it. But
Right.
How many people bring their own devices?
Quite a few. There are some of our regulars who use the PCs fine, but then there are an awful lot of, there are new people, and then there are some people who have, since we saw them last, they managed to get like a Chromebook or something. So
Right.
I guess they figure because they have their own device and
Right.
they just use the Wi-Fi that the 2-hour limit doesn't necessarily apply to them.
Right.
So we've had that kind of an issue too.
Mhm.
Well, it's easier with a sign-in sheet to monitor the 2 hours because, you know, you're doing other stuff the whole time. So it's easy to not notice somebody coming in and then
Right.
I don't know how long they've been here. I don't want to bug someone and, you know, kick them out before they've been here for their 2 hours. So if we actually have people write down the time, then we can say with certainty, like, you've been here long enough. And I don't even know if it needs to be 2 hours because the computer time can be 90 minutes. So
Mhm.
people aren't going to be browsing.
Well, and that's another thing we can do is we could limit our computer time as well. Some libraries are bringing it down to 30 minutes. I don't think people can do anything in 30 minutes. But we could reduce that computer time as well. What are your thoughts on that? Like changing it to an hour maybe, or?
Well, I mean, it does seem like the shorter amount of time that people are, you know, spreading their molecules around, the better. But it's like 15 minutes is recommended. That's way too short. So, I mean, an hour might help with that a little bit, but I don't know how hard that would be for people, you know, to grasp.
Yeah, there's
I
still
mean,
people that don't
and there
have a
might be
clue.
people who need a little bit longer, but I feel like we could be flexible if somebody's doing something, you know, that is like a question of their livelihood or,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
If checking email, I feel like an hour is plenty of time. Like go in, check, and, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you also have to give them, you know, give some leeway to technological issues because something's always going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And we still have so many people who are basically learning, you know, now that everything is remote, they got to do everything on the computer and
Right.
So do you think it would be helpful really to change the time to 60 minutes from 90, or do you think that that would just cause us to have more interactions with people?
Maybe just keep it at 90 and limiting the number of times they can be in, you know, would be helpful.
Right now, it's 2 hours, correct?
It's 90 minutes.
Oh,
on a
it is
computer.
90 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Computers
Yeah.
90 minutes, but we've been asking people to only be in the library for 2 hours.
The library for 2 hours, correct.
Right.
Your computer time, if you want to check something out, get it and go.
Mhm.
Right, but really, I think I mean, checking out can be done through curbside. So there's
Right.
no,
Yeah, I don't really see a lot of reason to let somebody in to browse.
No.
So some libraries are doing that, but I think it also reduces the surfaces that people are I mean, I don't know, I guess there might be people who will come in to use the computer and then walk up with materials. And I guess we'll check them out, just like Susan said, like, that's not really what you're supposed to be doing, but
Right.
are we to let them in? Like, will the doors be locked? Because we can't really keep the door
right.
open. So when we let them in, we can be like, so you can't browse. Like we could have a little feel, kind of
Right.
almost take them to a computer and be like,
Yeah.
here's your computer. You have 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And make your time slot 90 minutes instead of 2 hours.
Right. And then even like if we wanted to just say like these are the 4 computers that we're using, you know, we could do that so
That's
that
true.
people aren't just like, okay, I'll just go upstairs and choose this computer. We could just have the other ones off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's true.
Lock off whichever, you know, like whatever side.
Right.
Maybe the further ones that like we can't see as well, we just kind of have those so we know like people are here and here and you know,
Yeah.
keep an eye on them, keep an eye on the sign-in sheet and then clean them well when they're done, when we're done. So, you know, it's not just like people wandering around.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and I feel like our staff's been doing such a good job of staying home when they're feeling like the slightest bit sick, and but that's probably like more likely where it would spread within here is like from each other, but
Mhm.
I feel like because we've well, you, Diana, and the board, like everyone's been supportive of us like with these policies, it's made it easy for people to, stay home when they are feeling the slightest bit. So
Well, and we're fortunate enough to kind of have enough staff that that's not usually a really major issue. If we were at, some libraries have, 2 staff, and you can't call in sick without closing the library. So I think, we do have a little bit of an easier time because we're not as short staffed as a lot of libraries around here. Okay, so I think we kind of got it. I can kind of develop, revisit the sign-in sheet to have it, there was a script that went with that, so we'll amend the script and work with what we've kind of, I think, decided here in order to create a appointment schedule and work on that and stuff and get some stuff to you, Jen, so that could get posted online. We won't be open for appointments today, but we can get that going this week.
What?
Instantaneous. But we can get that going this week. So I guess then my next question on the agenda is what to do, in the future in terms of taking some of the guesswork out of this, because it's not, initially it was a lot more clear cut when the governor was just like, okay,
Yeah.
we're moving from this phase to that phase. And now it's really not. Now it's kind of like, okay, I would like to move us into phase, I would like you all to behave as though you're in phase 2, rather than, or in phase, in tier 3, even though I'm not really going to move you to tier 3 unless I absolutely have to. But then he doesn't even speak in those terms. He doesn't say the tiers. He just says, I want everybody to stay home as much as possible and don't gather with people and don't do anything other than running your absolute errands that you have to, like going to the grocery store or the pharmacy. But hasn't mandated any of that. So you can still walk into a department store right now and get stuff, but you don't have to get that stuff curbside. But so I guess for the future, in terms of trying to take the guesswork out of this order, does anybody have any suggestions, or should we just keep kind of playing this by ear and maybe say like that Barbara and Susan and Don, if any of you as individual board members feel like I should reconsider something, maybe give me a call, and I can reach out kind of first to Don as the board president and then to Susan as the vice president if I am not certain about a plan. But I don't know. Normally I like something to be a little bit more concrete, but they're not making it very concrete right now.
You sound like some of my staff. They want a black and white plan, and I'm like, we don't have a black and white plan.
Right. That's
I
true.
don't think we can have a black and white plan.
Right.
And especially with these vaccines that are coming on as quickly as they are, things could change, and they do change overnight. The hospitalization rate here in Jackson County, my husband gets that report every morning, and they even had to put somebody over in Murfreesboro. They usually put the people in Heron and Carbondale. So, and then tomorrow it could be different. And we have to remember Jackson County is, especially Carbondale, there's a bigger population here. Then you hear the number of people who are infected. Well, they're from small communities, and it's all relative.
Mhm.
and the kind of community that we have here. I mean, we can see the difference between Carbondale and, let's say, Marion, where they don't seem to follow any rules. I mean, we were over
Right.
there the other day and we weren't planning to go in anywhere. And we said, you can just, go into a restaurant where they're telling you don't do that. And,
Mhm.
but I think you're doing fine. I don't think we can have a black and white plan. I think you just have to take it day by day, unfortunately. And what we've discussed today, the curbside and the restrictions and appointments, and I don't think there's much more we can do.
Mhm.
Right, and the governor might take us into a more of a full shutdown
Right.
too, because it's just been so bad. I mean, I personally know 2 people who have died recently. I mean, not in Carbondale, but I mean, it's really starting to feel more close to home. So I think after Halloween and all those get-togethers, like we're just seeing that now. So in the next few weeks, it could just get even worse. So.
Well, do we want to just maybe talk about that scenario? Like, so if they do a further lockdown, do we want to eliminate appointments? Do we want to eliminate curbside? Like, how, and it's hard to say because we don't really know what that lockdown will look like, but I mean, we could just assume we've already kind of done our lockdown and this is us locked down, and a few people can make an appointment and we can do curbside services.
I mean, I would hope maybe if it gets a lot worse, we maybe would stop the appointments for a while and just do
Right.
curbside. I feel like curbside is pretty safe regardless, as long as we have enough staff and the staff is being safe, that feels okay. But the appointments might start to be a little scary if it's like a total shutdown, I mean, I don't think we have to close entirely again. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree in terms of that. I mean, unless I don't really know what a total shutdown would look like, but I feel like our staff have been really, able to stay safe around each other. I think we've proven that. There's no mask resistance or anything. I have not seen a staff person's nose in it's early March. So,
We're all gonna look so weird to each other.
I know.
And people are still registering, so they're taking advantage of the online services. So
Yeah.
even if we did, to stop appointments after we see what happens with them, if people behave,
mhm,
come in, do what we ask them, follow our particular guidelines.
mhm.
So they can still do the curbside stuff. They can still get things through Hoopla and all the other things. Because I just registered 3 people last night.
Oh, wow.
So they're still, we're still doing that.
Yeah.
They can still get what they need as far as material, but service would be, how are you going to act when we open the doors to you? Because I mean, there were still patrons that we hadn't seen since March that are just now coming in last week.
Yeah.
So they didn't even realize we were open yet.
Right. So I guess if we get a total lockdown, I mean, what we could do, because for this committee to meet, for us to have 2 or 3 board members meet, we have to give 48 hours notice. So I would think that maybe what we could do if we go to total shutdown in terms of deciding whether or not we will still do appointments. Like if I talk to Jennifer and Lynette and kind of decide what we as staff, are feeling about having appointments or not, and then maybe just run it by Don Prosser, or if he's
Right.
not available, run it by Susan, and go ahead and go with that. And then if anyone feels like we need to have a full committee meeting, then we could go ahead and do that. Just sometimes
I do think that makes sense, because obviously you know what's been happening within your own institution up to this point, and what your staffing levels are and what you're comfortable doing. I mean, what the public library does may be different than what, we do at a university library. And, right now, I mean, they're trying very hard to get us through this week and not shut down the university. But it's already been suggested to us that we limit the number of people in the building. It's not, they haven't come outright and said, no, shut us down. We have to have at least one person in every unit on campus to answer phones. I'm like, I've been doing that all semester. I really wish the other departments did that, but
Yeah.
I mean, and if you get to a point where you guys can't decide, then call Don.
Yeah. Okay. Will do. Well, I think that pretty much takes care of everything that I felt we needed to have a discussion about. Anything else come to mind? Any questions or comments, thoughts before we adjourn?
No, but I'll be over there in 10 minutes to pick up my book that's on hold.
Okay.
Be
Make an
forewarned.
appointment.
Yeah.
Is that how you're gonna close? What are you gonna do after Thanksgiving break?
Are you
Is that you?
asking?
Yeah, dear. Yes, dear. I'm asking you. What are you gonna do after Thanksgiving break? Are you gonna go remote, or what's the rest of the semester like?
We're not going to change much of what we're currently doing. Instead of our study area being open till 9, it'll be open till 5. But otherwise, we're not changing a thing. So if you have nice patrons with devices, you can send them over and use our Wi-Fi. But we don't want the bad patrons. I'll leave that up to Lynette to decide.
Yeah.
Good judge.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it. I'll get a plan ready and
Woohoo!
yeah. Okay. Well, it is noon. Susan, do you want to adjourn us?
Can we adjourn? I move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Do you all
Second.
agree? Yay!
Agree.
Okay, we're done.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Thank
everybody.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.